like if these guys were closer to each other, and then let's say at the top they meet, or maybe in the somewhere in the middle, they don't meet, but they would align with the same beam going this way, for example. Maybe these two outer ones align for beams going this way. You see what I mean? That any continuity you can create, in plan and section, I think will strengthen this. Does that make sense?
I think I'm getting a sense of what you're saying. So how many more columns would do you think I would need?
Um, it's hard for me to say just based on I need you to I need to look at like a plan with dimensions and stuff. How big are these? Your columns have this like rectangular profile. How big is that?
Yeah, my instructor suggested about 31 inches by, I believe, 14 inches.
Okay, so pretty big. Um, yeah. Well, and even if, well, I also suspect just based off first impression of this that it feels like the locations of these and how they're slanted, um, is at least a little bit arbitrary, right? Like you could tweak it. So take a look and assume, that at each time a column intersects with a floor plate, that it's meeting beams. Maybe start assuming that the beams are in both directions, and then look at the alignments with the other columns. Um, because even if you don't have like a strict grid dictating where your columns are, you still want like a general grid, I guess. It doesn't have to be a grid, but it's easiest to visualize it like a grid to create continuity between the columns, so to see like where you can create alignments like I was saying before, but also where you can create alignments with interior walls. Does that make sense? So like
Yeah.
if these guys align with each other this way and these guys align with each other this way, and then you have some continuous interior walls to provide more shear support, like, here, for example, or back here. Um, it's just whatever continuity you can create, the better. Does that all make sense?
Yeah, so I guess like start off with like beams, um, and then making sure like the columns kind of align. Or I feel like
Um,
the grid won't be like regular, but as long as like the columns meet the beams and kind of have like a system, I'll be okay. Or
yeah, I would literally create a layer in Rhino and kind of add guides, um, lines physically on the building where you have the intersections, and then you can hide everything else and just look at your like 3D grid and see where you can shift things to create more continuity.
okay,
And I don't think I can tell you right now what the exact right amount of, um, column continuity or shear support is, but right now it doesn't. Right now, your three, slanted columns appear to be the only continuity, besides that the floor plates are pretty continuous. And maybe your elevator core interior walls are continuous all the way up. But I think you need more continuity,
all
just
right,
generally. So take a stab at it, try to consolidate some of the things that are going on, and I think that'll, uh, point you in the right direction.
all right. Thank you.
Yeah, if that made sense. Let's see. Okay, you're signed up next.
Oh yeah, I can share my screen. Sec. So this is what I had for my mid review just yesterday, and I think I just need feedback on my structure and my staircase. But I'll first go over the structure.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna load real quick. So I've been trying to follow the 20-foot rule of spanning CLT columns and it being spaced pretty evenly, but I got like critiqued on just like the awkward placement of the columns. It's just like some of the columns just land in these areas
Mm.
that just like take up space of my programs, and I might just put it against the wall, but I'm not sure about how I can go about putting the columns not near the facade, because the way my facade looks currently is just like this staircase that's pretty noticeable and all the materials that I'm still working out. So I don't want it like near the facade, but also I don't want it to be like some place where people can just like bump into it. But yeah.
Okay. Is the red sketch over that one plan a reviewer's suggested structural layout?
Yeah. So
Okay.
they suggested that I put the columns against the walls or
Mm-hmm.
the programs in which people wouldn't exactly bump into it. And then I'm not sure about like this area because originally I was gonna put the columns against the facade, but I wanted it to set back, but then it would go onto the staircase, so then I
Mm-hmm.
have to set it back like even more. But I don't
So,
know.
is this what material are you assuming this is?
Oh, I'm using CLT, so I think right now it's 10 inches thick, and then the beams are like 8 inches. I'm not sure if
Are
that's
you
correct though.
okay? Okay. Well, I think your that sketch there is a good start. I agree um with what was drawn generally. I think that's the right idea to like. Would you zoom in a little? Excuse me. Like the column in room 6 and the one near the staircase. Those are close enough that um, you like what I was suggesting to Janeth, that if you just kind of like um, draw out your grid and see how everything aligns and kind of like pull things a couple feet in either direction,
Mm-hmm.
I think general realignment could solve those problems. The column down by what I'm assuming is the front door on the lower right.
Oh yeah, this one.
So if that stair is that stair enclosed most of the way up
Like enclosed from the.
by walls, because
Oh,
in the first floor plan it looks like it's enclosed.
I can show you a render of it. I don't
Um,
think it's like exactly enclosed because it's just pretty continuous.
go back to the plan we were just looking at.
Uh,
Um, I just mean how I'm looking at it now, at least on this level. It appears there's a solid wall here.
oh, okay, yeah.
Um, in which case, and maybe if it's not continuous, maybe if it only occurs there, then this logic doesn't apply. But let's say, for the sake of argument, that you have continuous walls here all the way up. And over here, too, if these are continuous all the way up, then
Hmm.
even if your grid didn't really align with those walls, and even if you kind of ended up with these weird columns, um, I feel like they're close enough to those continuous vertical interior walls um, that you could just get rid of that column. Does that make
Oh,
sense?
yeah.
So sometimes uh, having the vertical continuity of solid walls can kind of help compensate for your structural grid. And like usually you wouldn't have a column, or maybe over here is a better example, and over here. Normally, you wouldn't have a column so close to an interior wall
Oh.
because generally, either you're trying to do this, right?
Mm.
Which seems to work well that you've done it there, or it's just maybe maybe it's an outlier and it works everywhere else on the grid. It works, but in this one spot it doesn't work, and it falls so close to that to your stair core that you can just delete that column. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, because walls also provide some structural stability to the structure.
Right. Then
Mm-hmm.
in this, like over here with the exit stair, those walls are supporting the floor at that point to a certain
Oh,
extent.
I see.
So mess with the grid a little bit more. Maybe take this sketch as a starting point and create a new layer for like guides basically in Rhino and kind of mess with it. Maybe make like just your columns and the guides visible at first,
Mm-hmm.
and then make like the interior walls visible and kind of see how much continuity you can create.
Oh, okay, yeah, definitely. I'll experiment with that. And then I feel like I want to show you my staircase that I have so far. Um, so would this count as like one of those fancy staircases where I have this seating area that also provides a cane detection so people don't bump under like the 80-inch headroom requirement.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, is there any suggestions you would give me into like giving it more aesthetic to it?
Well, so your building is made of CLT.
Mm-hmm.
What do you imagine the stair is made of?
Yeah, I would imagine it to be of wood too.
Okay.
And then the railing could probably be of glass, but with the. Wait, the balusters could be made of glass, and then the actual, like, railing that you just, like, hold on to would be wood too.
Okay. Well, the railings are kind of arbitrary in how we model them. So as long as they're correctly proportioned, um, I would just mess around with like the material you're applying and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But for the stair itself, I would encourage you to model it as if you have. And actually, we were talking about this with Simon the other day, who's also doing a CLT building.
Mm-hmm.
That if you want to have a CLT stair, I would think either, so if we're looking at it in section, either you kind of have like big hunks of CLT that like fit, this is a terrible sketch, but they like fit together like blocks to form the rise and run. I guess it'd be like that. Um, in section, right? Or you'd have like a glue lamb stringer, basically,
Mm-hmm.
and then you'd have hunks of CLT that form the treads themselves, and then are maybe have some kind of big angle bracket attaching them to the stringer. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
So
But.
I would and just to clarify, in this one, there's still a stringer, but the precedent Simon and I were looking at basically had a piece of CLT that fit in, that was shaped like the profile of a stair, but then the hunks of CLT like sat on top of it.
Oh,
Does that make sense?
yeah, that's cool. Wait, what's the president study name? I feel like that'd be cool to look at.
I'd have to find it again. I just I just googled CLT
Oh,
stair. So I
sweet.
would also recommend you maybe poke around a little for precedents, but regardless of how you decide that it's gonna physically come together, I think if you model it that way in Rhino, it'll make a difference. It'll make it look a lot more realistic.
Sweet. Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Ian, were you signed up for After K?
Um, yeah, I think so. All
Um,
right. Uh,
Go ahead.
cool. Thanks. Okay, let's see. share my screen. All right. So first, I wanted to ask about so the one of the options is to represent the structural system. So I was wondering if something like this would work, like having like a diagram, and it says that we would just show like the sizes of the beams and the columns. So basically, like having kind of like a structural diagram like this, and like maybe having some pointers, some callouts, like saying like the sizes of the columns and the beams. Do you think that would that work for the exercise, or how is it?
Yeah. Yeah, I think something like this would be a great solution for that exercise. I will say the way you have it now, I'm confused about how it's exploded.
Mm.
That it seems like this is being exploded upwards, but then are these coming? These are all. Oh, I see. Are these two elements that make up this guy?
Yeah, so they're basically like ground floor, second floor, third floor, fourth floor. I guess I can play with this more because in this one I was more
Yeah,
interested in showing like the boxes because that's supposed to be like the program that they are.
right. So for these
Yeah.
purposes, you can like if you could consolidate it a little bit and make it well, I guess I'm seeing it smaller than I would be seeing it now just because you're screen sharing and I don't have it really full screen. But if you could
All
make
right.
it bigger,
Mm.
like you don't need to take up as much space on the
All right.
page with this,
Last but
right?
not least.
Because you're not as concerned about expressing like the program volumes to me, right? So if you make it a little bigger and add call outs, and then it'd be nice to have like bay dimensions, but then also like whatever by whatever column, like a combination of dimensions, annotations, call outs. Um,
Okay.
then yeah, I think this would be fine. The assignment sheet just kind of says like plan or AXO recommended, right?
Oh, I see. Okay. Oh, plan also. Okay. Well, maybe plan could have maybe make it easier. Or I can do like a
I,
combination.
yeah, I think reread the assignment sheet. I'd have to double check. I think it says you can do either or.
I see. Okay.
Both would be nice, but or like across your creative assignments, you're probably gonna have the plan somewhere, right? So
Mm-hmm.
as long as within the structural section or the structural module, you're fully describing it. I think it's either or, but just double check.
Cool. Cool. Okay. So, and the other question would be about the stairs. So this is what I have right now. So one question is, so for the stairs, you said the other day that we should like have like a section of the stair and like just describe it in terms of materials and like right. So maybe that would be one part, and then also like a rendering or something, or
Yeah, here, why don't I just pull up the assignment sheet just to make sure. Yes, I think a section is going to be the most important thing for the stairs. Just because it's so hard to describe the stairs without a section, right?
okay. And
I'm just
so in
checking
terms,
to see if the assignment requires anything beyond that. Here we go. Oh, hold on. So, yeah. So Dana has just said stairs are best explained in section. So you could just show a section, I think. And then for the structure, it says plan or AXO, as long as you show the columns, the structural walls, and the beams, and the shear walls, and all the appropriate dimensions. So I would recommend a section for the stair. It might be helpful to have like the corresponding plan, right? If you have to reference things in that way, but the section's the most important part.
Cool. And like in terms of how they are working, like right now, I'm gonna describe them a little bit just to see if they work like structurally. So this, what you see here, like the thin part on the back, that's steel. Like it would be like a steel folded plane, and that would reach out to a concrete. There's a concrete wall on the back, and then these would be like the riser and the thread would be wood, and so that would be like for the structure of the stair. So do you think that works, or do you have to add? Because actually, one of the options that I'm thinking, because it doesn't clear up like so if we look at the plan real fast, like this part right here, the headroom is not high enough for people to go under it. So it's basically going to have to be like enclosed by glass. But I was thinking that might be like a good opportunity for me to maybe even design like on the bottom like some structural like nice steel like kind of like scaffolding or something, because that's part of like what I'm using, part of the concept as well. So maybe it would be like some kind of I mean, actually it wouldn't have to be enclosed by glass maybe. I mean, one option that I was thinking is have like a kind of like a nice scaffold under, and then maybe it could be like have some utilitarian aspect of it, maybe for people to leave their backpacks there or something, could be one option. Or what do you think?
I think trying to make use of the space under the stair in general is a good idea. If it's going to be like for storage or something, I think that's like practically and in terms of design, I think that's a good idea. Structurally speaking, I think I was just Googling while you were talking some precedents of, I have seen stairs like this where you have just those like plates. But I do think most of the precedents you'll find they have like one stringer down the center, so that when you see the profile of the stair, it looks like it's supported fully by the steel plates, but then there's the stringer in the center, or it's supported on one side by the wall. So I'm not totally convinced that without additional structural support that this would work. Maybe it would. But you could also, so it might seem more realistic if you had, I would just recommend a stringer in the center. But if you're interested in, because you have this sort of language of posts and little cross bracing, you could throw a little post in there. I feel like that'd be less elegant though. I would just put a steel tube stringer down the center. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I mean the thing is that I mean I could do that, but then the space under would be like empty, just like, I mean